Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome Thursday. Welcome to episode 15 of our LinkedIn Live series with John Lees here on LinkedIn Live on Think Beginning Not End. Great to have you guys on and look forward to bringing John into the show today. Wherever you're watching, hope you're all staying safe. Just a few housekeeping things to start off with. We're broadcasting live here on LinkedIn to the YouTube channel and to my Facebook page. So no matter what platform you're on, let us know in the comments below where you're tuning in from, and we'll give you a shout out during the show. And if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments. And as the show goes on, you'll see a few banners across the bottom of the screen where you guys can reach out to John directly yourself, ask him any questions. He's probably going to be able to help your business. Now, today's episode is a deep dive on the topic of customers will do as they're sold. Now, we've covered this topic before, but today John is going to do a deep dive into it. And really looking forward to it. So I'm going to bring John straight into the broadcast. And he's joining us live from California. As always, John, welcome to the show this week. How are you? Hope you've had a great week.
I'm fine, thank you. And again, thanks for the invitation to comment and make some points that I hope people find to be interesting.
I'm sure they will. John, in the lead up to today's show, customers will do as they're sold. There's a little bit that you're going to cover on the who, why, where, what, where, when. And I was watching an interview with the great broadcaster, Larry King. And he always said in his thinking behind putting broadcasts together, if you ever got stuck, all you really needed to ask was who, why, what, where, when. And I know you're going to cover some of that today. So, I just thought it was quite interesting that we've got to ask the right questions to come out with a better answer or a better result.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty. So I'm going to jump off screen, guys. I'll hand it over to John, and I'll engage you guys in the comments. So throw your questions in, and I'll make them available to John as the show goes on, or towards the end of today's show. So over to you, John. I'm going to disappear off screen, guys, and enjoy today's show.
Hello, everyone, and in Australia and those listening and watching in America or elsewhere in the UK. Thanks again, Simon, for making this happen. 15th session. Didn't think we'd go that far, but we have, and we've got more to come. My name's John Lees, as you heard, and as you can see on screen. And I'm not a boastful kind of person, but the name Lees is very famous throughout history, as you probably know. You would have heard of Hercules. We have a very similar sort of physique and what have you. But all right. That's a lie. But we do have an ancestor that I looked up, and it's from several hundred years ago, and he was a Laplander, a Nordic gentleman by the name of Lars Lees. And we're very proud of Lars Lees because he designed the very first Viking helmet. So you can imagine how we feel. Very, very proud of that. Unfortunately, his design was rejected because he put the horns on the inside. But it's not that big a deal. Anyway, so yeah, and we have another ancestor who was a cowboy here in America. His name was Tex Lees, and he died at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which, as you may know, was called Custer's Last Stand. So again, we're very, very proud of Tex Lees. Tex wasn't actually in the battle. He was camping nearby and went over to complain about the noise. But, it doesn't lessen the fact that, we still admire him. So I suppose we should get down to the truth. I looked up the name Lees, and basically what it means, I was doing a crossword puzzle, and I was just going here and there, and there was a 4-letter clue which said the dregs of red wine. I don't drink red wine, so I didn't know what the answer was. But eventually I found it. The dregs of red wine. Lees, that's what it means. Lees, the dregs of red wine, the unwanted sediment, the scum. of red wine. That's basically what it means. And yeah, so and apparently that's the meaning of my name. But to be more honest with you, I looked up in the history of Lees and found out that the name Lees means strong, intelligent, and handsome, which, as you can imagine, made me feel very good. And then I found out that the word John means not very, so that's not good. So let's get going. We've only got about 30 minutes, and we're not going to go and get overly serious here, but the subject matter is serious. But I don't have the time, and I'm sure you don't either, to go into all the detail. Customers will do as they are sold. It's not rude. It's a play on the word told. I mean, customers want to be told what to do in a nice, professional way. So next week's issue is all about downselling, which coincides with what we're talking about today. So let's get started and have a look at how are customers sold in a way that is helpful to them and productive for us as well. Remembering that, you know, we've got them, the market, and us, the company, and we must have the mentality of them and us. Start with them and work backwards from there to us. In most companies, they don't mean to do this. It's us and them. I know they don't use this terminology, but that's the way they think. It's us first. You know, we're the big area to think about versus us, which is the market, which is really quite small to them. They can't really see what's going on and what have you, but we should see what's going on. We should know what the market does well, where the weaknesses of the market are, and find a way to help them with those weaknesses. So let's get started. We're going to have a look at where are we at now? Yeah, the customers will do as they so. We're going to talk about questions before the sale. So here are the questions. The first one is why? The second one is where? The next one is what? Next is how. Then when. And who. So I'm going to go through these. I won't be overly quick with them. Let me just point out to you that one of the books that I wrote is called Serious Sales Development. And pretty much all of the points that I'm talking about here today are in this book, and you can get access to this book free of charge in PDF form. Okay, so what I'm about to talk about, you can get full access to the information in this book, Serious Sales Development. Okay, so these are the things that we have to do before we go to market and apply our selling skills. First question is, why are we doing all this? What's the point of it all? And I have mentioned this briefly before when I said in an earlier session, when you ask people what is the purpose of business, the why factor, because that's what it means, why are we in business? And most people will say to make money or to make a profit. That is not true. That is a commercial goal of the business. That's a background goal. The foreground goal is why are we doing this is because we want to help people to be more successful. Because if they are more successful, then we will be more successful. It's a very simple formula. I didn't make it up. I'm just trying to follow it. Okay? So the first factor is the why. Make sure in your company, or if you're helping people with training or whatever it is that you do, make absolutely certain that they understand that the why factor is absolutely critical. This is the purpose of business. The purpose of business, as I've said before, find customers, serve customers, satisfy customers, and keep customers. And as we mentioned previously, the only way to keep a customer is to develop them. So the why factor is absolutely critical at all times in the company. There's nothing moralistic or pious about this. You don't have to fall in love with customers. It's got nothing to do with it. What we must do is earn their respect and so forth. So the first factor is why in a company. Always keep returning to the why factor. Next is where. Where are the opportunities? Where's the potential? Because it's okay for a company to set targets and to say, okay, we want to get 10% more. I have no argument with any of that. But where is the potential that will allow us to do that? Or are we simply going to go out and steal business from our competitors? You can steal business, but it's got to be done in a way that is completely acceptable to the customer, and you earn it. It's as simple as that. You earn it. So where? So as I've mentioned before, there are two market gaps. There's the first gap and the second gap. So here's the first gap. This is absolutely full to overflowing, highly contested, highly congested. Don't try and sell in the first gap. You've got no chance whatsoever, unless you're very cheap, unless you're cheaper than the competition, which means you're probably not going to make any money. So here we're talking about managing to work your way around this area here, because this area here is not a good area to sell in. In fact, it's the worst area to sell in. Okay, so then we look at the second gap. And the second gap, which is pretty much attached to the first gap, this area here has only been developed to approximately this level here. This is a huge area of potential. Now, again, we have discussed before, how do you measure potential? You measure potential by starting with the success line. So, for instance, in sport, if you're going to teach your kids how to be good at soccer or athletics or whatever it happens to be, then begin with the top line players and talk about what they've done and show the kids what they've done and so forth. That gets them to understand this is how high is up. Okay? And then, although they're not likely to either ever make it to that point or to get close to that point, maybe they can go beyond that point. The whole idea of showing it to them is to remind them that there's a huge area of opportunity. And companies should also be doing this, okay? Don't go into the first gap. When you want to go to market, okay, always acknowledge the first gap. Tell them that I'm sure you've already got a supplier. You've got the kind of products that we have. I'm not here to interfere with anything. We don't sell interference. We sell improvement. That's what I want to talk to you about. So nothing that I have to say will interfere with what you currently do. What I'm talking about is adding to your success situation. So you must do that in order to show respect and then move into the second gap. That's where the opportunity is. So if you need any help with this, let me know. But in this book, it's made very clear about the first and the second gap, and make absolutely certain that you aim everything you do at the second gap while respecting the first gap. Next, what? This refers to our proposition. So what will our proposition be? What are we selling? And what we're selling must fit with the second gap. We're selling opportunities. We're not simply selling product. So think of it in this way. We're not selling products, we're selling productivity. The word product is part of the word productivity, but we need to know how to activate that product and make it work much better for the customer than it has done before in this relatively predictable, weak area. It is weak, and we've all been in that area. When I started as a sales rep, that's the area I was directed into. Oh, it was awful, absolutely awful. And then I met customers who were operating in this area here, and they began to teach me in a nice way, only about 3 of them, very good at teaching me, these are the areas that you want. This is what we're interested in, John. We're interested in improvement. We're interested in doing better than we've done before. So don't interrupt, don't interfere with what we're currently doing. Help us with what we can do well. And to do that, you must have a story. Now, I've mentioned before that it's very important to be able to have an idea called the ideas bank, where you look for and find customers who have had a very high level of success with your product, very high level. It could actually be that they've had a very high success level with someone else's product. the product isn't the thing. Products are usually average. I don't mean average in quality. I mean average in terms of knowledge to the market and so forth. What we're talking about here is being able to help them realize that there's a better way, there's a better result that can be achieved, etc. So what we're talking about with the proposition is one that's aimed at this area here, not this area, okay? And the four things that we're looking for is what kind of result can be achieved in the second gap with our proposition, okay? Second, what motivation is required by the organization that's purchasing the product in order, they can't just stand by and watch what happens. They have to be able to understand what's needed, and that's part of our proposition, okay? And then we get to the strategies. How do you actually do all this? You can't just talk about it. How do you do it? And then you get the lessons that come from it. What worked well, what maybe didn't work well, what could work better, and so forth. So why is the motivation, the purpose, the reason for going to market? And, I can tell you that people in the entertainment industry, what drives them is making people happy, making people satisfied, and what have you. When I was a very young man, I did a little stint on comedy on TV in Australia, in Sydney. And, I can only tell you, I wasn't an experienced comedian, and nor did I stay one, because I didn't want to be one. But it's always helped me to influence my talking, my training and what have you, with humor. But when I first started, and to this day, if I don't feel beforehand that I want to make these people that I'm talking to as more successful and to enjoy business more and to make it less complicated. So have a very good proposition. A good proposition starts with a forecasted result, okay? Second, it comes with a plan for how that result will be achieved. And number three, an agreement to work together to make absolutely sure that it's all going according to plan. Okay, so have a very good proposition. Most people don't. They simply have a product that they want to talk about, bore the pants off people. Next, how, which is the presentation process. Okay, and I've been through part of it. Okay, so you've got the result, you've got the plan, you've got the management of the plan and so forth. But as I mentioned earlier, you've got to make sure that when you go to market, you don't just walk in and start talking to them about what you do, because they will immediately think that you're attacking the status quo. You may remember the brick wall strategy that we talked about, where if you're not careful, you'll walk straight into a trap of your own making. This is the wall here. Okay, we've got to go above the wall into the area of potential. So when we talk then about how, we've got to have a presentation that is really of interest to people in this area here, something they've never heard about before, something they need to hear about, okay, away from what they normally hear about. So get a good presentation organized, which, as I said, is the plan, the result, the plan, and then the agreement to work together, etc. But you don't do that until you've recognized and accepted that they're already doing okay with their current suppliers, okay? We're not attackers. When? This refers to training. When will you be ready to go to market? Because we can't simply have a discussion like this, especially with salespeople and what have you, and go through it and they're making notes as we talk. You know, training isn't simply making notes. Training is understanding what steps you have to take, not robotic, boring steps, but interesting steps, as I've been saying. And I didn't invent all this. This is the basis of good selling for anybody. We've got to train people. Now, the first thing we've got to do in training is sell them on getting into the second gap and understanding that's where the opportunity is. Okay? I can't tell you how many salespeople I've met, and I was one of them, who were sent to market with some sort of basic product or service, and they walk straight into this area here, and not only do they not make sales, they become quite depressed, and they also become tentative, very tentative. Are you interested to hear about this? Would you like me to tell you about that? And so do you have time to talk about this? It's pathetic. It's awful. But you can't blame the salespeople. They dance to the tune of management. So what we've got to do is train people. Number one, sell them on the idea that you're taking to market, because if they don't buy it, they can't sell it. Secondly, if they don't feel sorry for people that don't have our offering, then they're not going to get very far. Okay? It's like a friend telling you about a movie or a book they've read. They eagerly want to tell you without asking permission. So number one, sell people on the idea. And then we get them to understand the proposition, the various presentation items in the proposition. And then we teach them how to go through that process to the point whereby they can't get it wrong. They enjoy doing it. They feel good about it. And so that's not likely to happen in 5 minutes or a day. It takes time, okay? We've got to help people. This is a massive area that's missing in business, where we say to people, okay, have you got it? Yes, yeah, no, I've got it, yeah. And they haven't got anything, okay? Especially when the customer seems to be slightly aggressive or whatever, the whole thing just collapses and so forth. So make sure you train people. Again, if you need any ideas on any of this, you want to contact me, you will see my email address at the end. My email address is info, I-N-F-O, at John Lees, all one word, there it is there, .com.au. So there's quite a number of people who've been kind enough to get in touch with me, to give me their point of view, to ask questions, asked for the book and different things. So there we go. So make sure you do the training properly. Probably these 3 areas here, these 4 areas here, these 5 areas here are where most companies collapse. The why factor favors them. Not a good idea. Where's the potential? They don't know. They're not idiots. They're very intelligent people, but they don't know about the second gap. It isn't obvious. The customers don't know about the second gap. Get a good proposition, a very good proposition. Make sure you've got the steps that, when I say proposition, I'm talking about a result. You're selling a result. To get a result, you must sell a result. The presentation steps, training, and finally, which customers or prospects will I aim for? Who are you going to so most salespeople have quite a lot on their timetable. They've got lots of things to do and so forth. So they can't simply take this line of thought and apply it to everybody. They've got to be able to say, who shall I go to? And that's why I mentioned the idea called Focus 5 or Focus 10, where you identify maybe 5 customers and 5 prospects, okay? And you make it your business to go after these people. You make a note on who you want to talk to. You must make sure that when you ring them or email them, that you do so in a way that respects the first gap and tells them about an area of opportunity. That's all they want to hear. If they hear that, they will be more than interested to hear from you. And as I've mentioned before, you can say to people, I would, by the way, just so that you know, what I have to say about the opportunity takes 5 minutes. That's all it takes. If at the end of the 5 minutes you find it to be of interest and worthy of further discussion, then I will go from there and I will elaborate, which is to go further into the presentation process and so forth. But they must know from the start that you're not going to take all day to tell them about something they're not really interested in. What they will be interested in is the potential, the opportunity that you're going to sell them. Okay? Very, very important. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. Now, so this is the background. This is the planning that goes into it, the realization, the understanding that there is a second gap. This is the gap that nobody goes into. We've got to have a proposition and a presentation. Okay, so the proposition is the result that you're going to deliver and how you're going to manage it. The presentation are the steps. The training is making sure that people know exactly what they've got to do. They don't have to worry about it. As I've said before, you must have met lots of people who want to tell you their latest joke and they mess it up, which is completely forgivable for a friend or a relative or whatever, or a colleague. Okay, but it's not forgivable here. That's why training is extremely important. And then we'll decide who are we going to talk to. Let's aim for these people. Let's learn from what we do. etc. Now, to do all this, you must have good salespeople. Absolutely vital. So let's have a look now at the 4 choices that you've got. The first one, as you can see on the screen, is a salesperson. Now, let me explain what this means. This means that this person basically knows what selling is all about. They understand it, etc. But as an individual, they're not overly interesting to talk to. They don't have aspirations. They don't have ambition. They're not overly committed in terms of mortgage, or maybe they are, but they don't realize that they need to do something about it. So, you know, when I first got started in selling, I was delighted when, you know, they started offering incentives and what have you, because that woke me up, because my wife and I had only just got married, got into a small home and so forth. So we had pressure on us, as most people do, for a long part of their life in many cases. So, you know, you've got to have a person, not who's acting because they need help, but because they want to get better. They want to get better at this area here, okay? So very, very important for us to understand that if you've got a salesperson, someone who knows what they're talking about from a selling point of view, but they as individuals are not overly interesting to talk to, the way they behave, something about them, you know, maybe they're not reliable, you know, as a person. Will you ring me tomorrow? Yes, yeah. They forget. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been flat out, all sorts of things. This is not going to work, okay? This is going to break the whole thing down. Then you have, even worse, a salesperson. So here now we have someone who's not interesting at all, no ambition, no aspiration, even though at an interview they will say they do, but they don't. And as I've told you before, I have a very simple device, which is called the Recruitment Device. I'll just show it to you. One sheet of paper. I haven't got it here in front of me. One sheet of paper, which you give to an applicant at the end of an interview, and it has your standards on it, etc. I can help you with that. I can send you the document, and then you can change it according to your company and the way you do things. And at the end of the interview, you say to people, okay, so nice to meet you, and thank you for coming in. And I'm going to give you this document. It's only 1 page, very simple stuff. Go home, read it. Don't read it now, read it. And if you agree with the standards and you think you're a good fit for them, then all you got to do is give me a call. And if we agree, we'll go to the second interview. That's it. About 70% never call back. Sometimes it's more than that. In some instances, it's been as high as 90%. Why? Because when they look at the standards, when they look at what they've got to do, what they'll be held responsible and accountable for, no thanks. They're not interested. Okay, so this means then that the 10 or the 20 or the 30% that are left are likely to have the opportunity, the aspiration to be successful. So be careful not to hire someone who not only does not know about sales, but on the basis of selling and why we do it. It's not simply to get sales, it's also to help people with whatever they're looking for, but we've got to have the kind of persona that a person really enjoys. Okay, next. Next, you could have a salesperson. Now, this is a great opportunity because if you've got someone who has the persona, the attitude, the aspiration to do well, the need to do well as a family and so forth, then they'll be all ears when it comes to this. Okay, so very, very important that we understand we've got to hire someone with the persona, with the character, with the quality of an individual who's more than happy to learn how to do this, etc. And then finally, you end up with what we're all interested in, which is strength on both sides. A very interesting, devoted person, a very reliable person who says if they're going to do something, they do it, etc. And they're very good at selling, very good at selling. If you don't have this or don't work towards it from this sort of situation, because you won't get it here and you won't get it there, if you have people here, it's not normal for people to come for an interview and to know how to sell in the way that we've been talking. Okay, we've got to help them. We've got to help them to step up. That's why I said sell it to them first so that they buy the idea, and then eventually they will become a sales person, a person of qualities in both areas. So that's it from me. Again, thank you, Simon. And you can send me an email, or you can send one to Simon, and we can send you this book all about the areas that I've been talking about today, but in far more detail, which I hope you find to be interesting. And then you will know, and you can ask questions if you want to, but as I said, it's all involved in this book here. So thank you, Simon, and thank you to people watching, and I hope you found it to be interesting. Can't hear you, Simon, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Helps when you unmute your microphone. John, another great session today. Thank you very, very much. I did have a question from Paulo in Brazil, and it was around the process or the timing about the customer decision in those first who, why, what, when steps. So if we go back up to there, what considerations, and you might be covering this next week, by the way, with downselling, but is there a timing that people need to be considerate of when it comes to the customer's decision and all this?
Well, I mean, if you're in front of a doctor and the doctor has created a serious discussion for you both to have, and then the doctor, after going through the diagnosis process, will say, okay, here's what needs to be done. And they begin at the end. They say, okay, first of all, and then they go through the processes, the medications, MRI, X-ray, whatever it happens to be, and come and see me in 1 month from now. Okay, now they know that the person might decide not to do that, but most people do. When they're getting good advice, second gap advice, new opportunities, they will agree. I mean, but what you can't do, as I've said in previous sessions, is leave it up to the customer to make the decision before you've given them your ideas as to what will work best. So don't say things like, okay, so I talked to you about it, so what do you think? Then you're gone at that point there, because you put all of the stress on them. Okay, what we need to do is to say, okay, we've discussed this opportunity, this idea. I'm now going to give you my view of what would be the best way for you to approach this and to use this idea. Okay, number one, and then you go through it. And then you say, I'm doing this to help you to make your decision. That's what we're here for. We can't force people to buy, but if we do it in the right way, they will buy. And by the way, it's also important within the context of your discussion with a customer or a prospect to offer them a test period, so that they don't feel as if they've been, the consumers, the vendors, the suppliers they're currently dealing with, will be told to get lost. That if you have a quarter that you use as a period, you can say this is the testing period that we will have. Then you will know whether it works for you or not.
Yeah, and John, that's another good point, because there was a comment today in the feed from someone saying that you've got to assess the market gap with real information. And I did just reply really quickly that it is a topic that John has spoken about before, and you've just touched on it again, is understanding where that gap is, but then go and test the idea in the marketplace first. And that's a really important step.
Yeah, and again, if we go back to the medical world, they're not allowed, unless you're President Trump, that is, you're not allowed to go to market and start talking about an opportunity that has not yet been proven. The laboratories will only pursue medications once they have been proven in their own way of doing things to be okay for their patients. Otherwise, they're in big trouble. Okay, that's our job too, in our own way. We've got to make absolutely sure from the ideas bank, the stories that we have, that we know that this is a success. We know that it actually works, because we've investigated it and we understand the details of what this person went through. What result did they get? Why did they decide to take this more seriously? What strategies did they use? Were they the ones that we suggested to them? Did they add anything to it? And what lessons did they learn as they went along the way? You're selling the truth. You're selling the truth.
Yeah,
not an idea.
Absolutely. And probably one thing for everyone to realize, I mean, you've quoted some stats or some percentages before of, actually how big the opportunity is to do this and do it properly. But John, what percentages of businesses actually go out there and execute on this type of strategy? That might give everyone an idea of how big the opportunity is. If you
maybe 5%, if you're lucky. It isn't in our makeup as salespeople and companies to do this. You take a company, they've got a head office or whatever. Management operates behind the scenes. Okay, they're not doing this to cause problems, but it does cause problems. They feed the salespeople with products and what have you. The products are nothing wrong with the products, but they're not breakthroughs. And then the salespeople go to market, and the customers say, "Well, why don't you bring something new to show me, some sort of opportunity?" I mean, they don't say that because they know reps don't usually have that information. So, it's a 5%, I would say, or just less than 5%. It's very 5% of companies actually do what we've been talking about here, and that's mainly because they're customers of mine.
Yep. And John, what are the chokeholds for the companies that, when you speak to different companies, and people can get in touch with you if they want to engage your services, but what are some of those chokeholds that these companies put up to say, why they won't do it or why they shouldn't do it? I mean, what are some of the obvious things that you might just be able to drop a few for everyone to know today?
Well, they'll give you an excuse if you didn't do your job properly. If you did your job properly and you sold them and made it clear that you're going to help them to be successful, you've got a plan for doing it. You're not just giving them a story. You're giving them a plan. You're giving them a system of management, etc., because we have to have that. That's why doctors say things like, "Come and see me in a month." They want to know, is it working? Is it having the effect on you that you should have, and so forth. So, yeah, I think it's very important that we understand that we're there to direct the customer to do the right thing in a way that they find completely acceptable.
Yep.
Okay.
Another great episode, some more insights at the end there, guys, and I've just dropped it on the bottom of the screen. If you want to get in touch with John, like many have already, info@johnlees.com.au. John will make any of his 13 books available to you via PDF, and some of you have reached out and grabbed hold of them, and also a few of you have reached out and asked for John's services. So if you imagine what you're getting in these 15 episodes and you had John one-on-one to your own company, the value that you're going to get there is absolutely exceptional. So another great episode. John, everyone's going to want to join us for next week because we're going to be talking about downselling, which is going to kind of cover some of Paulo's question, but really looking forward to next week as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Guys, we'll see you. Yeah. We'll see you next Thursday. And don't forget, if you like the show, it's also available on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're on the YouTube, I'd love you guys to subscribe, hit notifications, and you'll be notified every time we have a live show with John Lees or another piece of content that we put up for our regular recycling and sustainability stuff. So, guys, great show. Thanks again, John. And we'll see you all next Thursday live here on LinkedIn with John Lees.
Thanks again.